Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop Fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. Shall we do this show?
We should.
Let's do this thing. All right. You start.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
That was good. That was a good. That was nice. It was a punchy open.
Was it? Was
Yeah.
it musical?
Yeah. No, that was good. That was good. Gosh, we got everybody is sick in this house. And I don't mean that. That's actually not true. Only one person, the littlest person in my house, is sick. But he is so sick that it has made everybody appear sick to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to touch anybody. There's no more hugging. There's just, it's all over because I'm so paranoid about it. They're all carriers. We know that. We've seen the trailers to World War Z.
That's right.
We know anything.
Does your house look like E.T. when the
no, it's been
came
tented.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm full on.
Everybody walks in the big outfits.
Yeah, it's a full tenting.
Nice.
Yeah. How are you? How's your week?
Good. Busy. Good, but good.
What are you doing tomorrow? Are you doing anything special? Tomorrow's May 3rd.
Like Iron Man.
What? Shocking. Are you going to see full 3D IMAX?
No.
48 frames per second?
Isn't this one 96 frames per second?
I think it's 96 and a half frames per second. This should be. I am very much looking forward. Very much looking forward to this film. Yeah, it's one of those, man. It's being a little bit over promoted. I don't like that. You know, did we talk about the fact that there are two versions of this, or there are at least two versions of this movie? The Chinese, what they did for China.
Oh yes, I know we talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we.
Then
I
don't want to talk about
it on the show or off mic, but yeah.
Well, the whole concept is, you know, it looks like, believe it or not, the movie industry, film industry, is waking up to variable data marketing. And so with Iron Man, we have a great example of that, where the filmmakers say, you know what, we have this great big market in China, and so we're going to just right smack in the middle of the film, we're going to go to China, and we're going to shoot with new, like, big Chinese stars, entirely new content for the movie that is specifically takes place in China, in Tiananmen Square, wherever it is, all the famous places, with Chinese actors, and release Iron Man 3, the Chinese version, which is our version, but with all this new Chinese stuff in it, in China.
Do you think when they release it here on Blu-ray and DVD, do you think it would have both versions, or do you think that version will only be for Asian markets?
I don't know. That seems.
It's interesting.
It seems like a thing that they would probably keep to Asian markets, because that seems like a thing they would do.
Yeah, it does.
Do you know what I mean? Like, how dumb. And plus, you know, bootleg market.
Well, and you know that Iron Man 3 opened already overseas.
Right.
And the reason for that is the piracy.
Right. Just get it out there fast.
Yeah. Get it out there before it is playing in the States. They have a chance to make like copies that are on the streets selling before it even opens overseas.
Well, it's much more convenient because now they can actually make the bootlegs in the same place they're going to sell them. That reduces time to market.
Exactly.
Right. Maybe that's where we get our Chinese versions. We're going to start bootlegging the Chinese versions of all these films. I'm still looking forward to it. I'm not kidding.
But I tell you, I will be seeing it in just regular old 2D, because according to the website we talked about on the show, Real or Fake 3D, this is a fake 3D film. It was a post-conversion. So that just makes it a little less exciting for me to see in the third dimension.
Absolutely with you, and I think I enjoy it more in 2D. Although I'm going to tell you, I saw a film this week that surprised the heck out of me.
And that was?
Would you like to know what it was?
It was
The Croods.
Oh, okay.
I did. My son, it was his birthday weekend, and we do birthday movies on birthday weekends. And he really wanted to see The Croods, and I didn't know anything of it. I knew that, you know, it was an Emma Stone thing, and, you know, Nicolas Cage and cavemen. That's about it.
Yeah.
This was a beautiful film.
Yeah.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. The way, I mean, I've never quite seen water and just general fluid dynamics, CG fluid dynamics done quite this way. I mean, it was gorgeous. And according to the Real or Fake 3D website, this is a real 3D.
That's right.
Which I should have seen in 3D, but we saw it in 2D because the glasses don't fit his head. But it makes me want to go back and see it. It's very much a daddy-daughter movie. So if you have young daughters, you should see this movie with them. It's quite good.
I've been intending to take my daughter to see that every weekend since it opened, and for one reason or another, something's come up and we have not been able to see it. So I am definitely looking forward to catching that with her at some point soon.
Yes, it's very sweet. It's a
Excellent.
It's a must catch in 3D. I think this one's probably worth seeing in 3D.
Nice. You know what I saw this weekend?
Do tell.
Finally catching up on the big thing that's, according to your father, worth bailing on a 7-year-old's birthday party. I went and saw Oblivion. That's right.
I haven't yet seen it. What'd you think?
I liked it. I don't know if I'd say it's worth bailing on a 7-year-old's birthday party,
but it was good.
But I enjoyed it. I know some people have problems with it. The story takes a turn toward the end that I think you kind of buy into or you don't. I bought into it all the way. I really enjoyed it. Had a great time. It had some interesting things going on. And it was gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous to watch. So I had a great time. And the funny thing is, my wife and I also started this weekend for some strange reason. I think it's because I did my James Bond series where I watched every James Bond movie. My wife hates James Bond, and so she really was upset that I chose to do that. So I was trying to find a series we could watch together, and so we started the Tom Cruise series. We started watching every Tom Cruise movie from the beginning.
So how far are you?
We're only 2 movies in, and then I saw Oblivion. But I've got to say, the first movie that he was in is called Endless Love,
right,
from 1981. It was a Brooke Shields romance film. Tom Cruise is in it for about a minute, and it was one of the most horrible films I've ever seen.
Right.
It was painful to sit through, and it's just illogical. It's a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old who fall in love, and it's the schmaltzy romance. The parents of the daughter come down and see them making love in front of the fire. The mother doesn't do anything. She just watches and pines for her youth. It was just an abysmal film.
But he makes up for it with Taps, right? You guys have already been through Taps.
And that was my first time watching Taps. One of the reasons we ended up picking Tom Cruise is because I have seen so few of his early films. So yeah, I'd never seen Taps, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. He's definitely, right from the start, out of the gate, he is so full of energy. He's it's always been there. He is Mr. Energy in his performances.
That is the truth. He was practically jumping on couches in this. But this was Taps is one of those movies with great performances from a lot of people. Timothy Hutton and Sean Penn, and
Giancarlo Esposito. I had no idea. It's like watching all these faces of these people. It's like, wow, this is what they looked like. Yeah. 30 years ago.
Well, it's that same kind of experience, with the 1960 or 1976 films. I mean, it's just getting those sort of flashback moments.
Yeah.
So what's next? Where are you up? When do we hit All the Right Moves, Legend? Those are later, right? We still have to get through The Outsiders.
Yeah, we got to finish up with a few more from those early 80s.
Yeah.
We've got to watch Losing It. That's, I think, our next one that we've got to watch. And then we jump into All the Right Moves and The Outsiders, Risky Business.
Oh yeah, and then it's then it's a cake.
Then it's big. Then it's Legend, Top Gun, Color of Money.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
So yeah,
I think awesome. That's a good series, man. There's a lot of
there's a lot of good ones. A lot of ones I don't like as much, but I'm looking forward to it. I think that I think I'll enjoy it. So
that's awesome. Don't forget to hit Space Station 3D, a documentary he narrates about the International Space Station. I want to make sure you do that. You see every minute of that.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. Yep. Well, so this is the next reel. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Pete. That's Andy, and we talk about movies a lot. And if you want to find out more about us, head over to thenextreel.com. There you can find out what movies we're talking about. You can catch up with the Film Board, our monthly review of new movies, and you can subscribe to the show in iTunes for free, or listen to the show on the website, whatever works for you. We sure do appreciate kind comments and reviews. It helps other people discover the show. And make sure you like us on Facebook, so that you can keep up with the discussion that's going on over there. On this show, we talk about old movies usually, and right now we're
wrapping up a series on great films of 1976. And at the very same time, we are launching a brief series on Paddy Chayefsky, the fantastic screenwriter of the era.
Hear, hear.
I think I got everything.
I think so.
So let's talk trailers. Shall we do that?
Sure.
Do you want to go first? I think I should go first because mine's kind of. I'm looking less forward to mine than I am to yours.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I'm only doing this one because of you. I was not interested. In fact, I actually have this movie in my library, the first one. This is the sequel to the first one, which I have in my library, and I have no memory of actually watching it. So it didn't stick well with me. But the second trailer for Red 2, Red 1, when did Red come out? 1907?
Back
like
when they were a young
2007, 2010, something like that. So yeah, I mean, it's a Bruce Willis thing. You know, it falls in the genre of geriatric action film that I think was. Do we say it was really ushered in this genre with The Expendables? Or
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And so in terms of modern geriatric action, we get one of those just unreal casts in this action film. We got Bruce Willis, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Mary Louise Parker, John Malkovich, Byung-Hun Lee is an assassin, Helen Mirren, really? It just goes on and on with Anthony Hopkins playing daffy old CIA man. It is. I don't know if it looks good. I've given up making any sort of trailer judgment on movies like these because you apparently say I should see The Expendables. I've never seen any of them.
I said the first one was entertaining. I didn't say it was good.
You said get out there and see it because it's so great, and you should see both of them. And so now because of you, I'm kind of on the lookout for these geriatric action films. And the second trailer, which came out this week for Red 2, was the first time it actually piqued my interest. It made me laugh. John Malkovich is, seriously, he's funny. He's a funny man, and
he plays crazy well.
He certainly does, and any excuse to see him do that is welcome in my book. So I may just give this one a shot.
All right.
So that was it. That's mine. It's coming. Blast. When is it coming, Andy? 19th of July, 2013. And it is directed by Dean Parisot. Parasite. Written by John Huber and Eric Huber. And there you go, Red 2.
All that good stuff.
All right, do yours. I'm very excited about this.
Well, my trailer is for a film called The History of Future Folk. It looks like the strangest little movie. It won at the Fantastic Fest last year. And it looks fun. It looks like a wacky musical sci-fi comedy something or other thing going on. It's basically about some aliens from the planet Hondo who come down, and just as they're about to destroy the Earth, they hear our music in the form of the elevator music playing in a store, and they fall for like folk music, and they decide instead of destroying the Earth, they're going to form a band. And so they start playing around the place, and the title on the advertising says probably the only alien folk duo sci-fi action romance comedy movie ever made.
Oh goodness.
So it looks cheap, it looks goofy, it looks fun, and I think it'll be a wild time. So John Mitchell co-wrote it with and directed it. He co-wrote it with Jeremy Kip Walker, and it just looks like an interesting little independent film.
It looks great. Totally worth seeing. You can head to futurefolk.com to learn more about the movie if you want to skip all the IMDb stuff.
Yeah,
looks great.
Yeah, and it looks like their first feature. They did some shorts, and here's their first feature. And I hope it does something for them because it looks like a fun one. Comes out at the end of May.
Fan-freaking-tastic. The other one I'm getting more and more excited about is the Ricky Jay film coming up.
Oh, the magic one.
It's not. As far as I can tell so far, it's not coming to Portland, but I'm watching constantly. He's been on the press tour. And so you can find a whole bunch of clips on YouTube of him talking to Dave Letterman, and the Letterman bit is actually quite good, talking about the difference between a con and magic in cards. Mm-hmm. And he plays just a fantastic close-up sleight of hand bit on Letterman that you just never see coming. He's so good.
Interesting. He's interesting, like the actor / magician. So
right.
Good old Ricky Jay.
Do we have any other news to talk about?
Steven Soderbergh had his diatribe with the film industry at was it the San Francisco Film Festival?
Yeah,
this week?
What'd you think of that?
Pretty interesting.
Well, give some talking points here.
Well, we have. I don't know if I have talking points. I read it a number of days ago, and I can't remember it that well. But he spoke about the kind of the nature of the business right now and how it's shifted and changed, and why we make films, why we watch films, are films really helping? And, just his feel about the kind of the corporate control of it. But, it still is something that's worth going out and making, because that's what we are. We are artists. It may not actually end up helping anybody, but, it's something we got to do. And, that seemed to kind of be the long and short of it. It was a little depressing and it was a smack of reality. When you read it, but it was smart. It was really smart, well told, and I enjoyed reading it and thinking about it.
Well, I'm glad you did. I say that snidely only because I haven't really thought much about it yet. At this point, he's just a little bit schizophrenic about his feelings toward film, I think, and so,
it's a frustrating business. It's a business that gives him tons of money, as long as he cranks out Ocean's 11 types of movies. The minute he wants to do something a little daring and a little risky, like when he was trying to do Moneyball, they freak out and they say, this is too. We're just not convinced that this is going to actually make any money. We think this is a little too crazy, and so no, you can't have any money.
Yeah. I mean, I buy that, but there are channels for making small films, and there are channels for making big films. And if he wants to make films that cost the kind of money that he wants to make, or that cost the kind of money Ocean's cost to make, he's either going to have to pony it up himself or go to a studio that has demands. Isn't that what we're seeing with we're seeing that with the Zach Braff thing? I mean, here's Zach Braff, who's apparently worth a lot of money. There are a lot of people upset with that. We talked about the Kickstarter thing last week, that he's making the sequel to Garden State. And he went to Kickstarter first, and there are people who are upset, saying, this is for the indie artists who are trying to get, Kickstarter is all about getting the unknown. We talked a little bit about this, the whole contamination effect of Kickstarter. If you have too many big names in there, the small names won't get noticed, which is what, many believe Kickstarter is for. And, to me, it just seems like another channel. And now we have a mechanism where the market can will out, and that Soderbergh, does his mad as hell moment, has his mad as hell moment kind of every 2 years. It sort of loses impact.
Yeah, maybe I missed it 2 years ago.
Well, maybe it's not 2 years, maybe it's more than that. But it was the last time he decided he wanted to quit and paint and make toast. We have should we talk about the movie? Do we have other news? You should say you should go to Facebook, because there are some really great links. There was a great post. We'd love to hear some commentary on feelings on Dolby Atmos. I have not been a part of an Atmos experience yet. Have you?
Yeah, no, there's none near me. Yeah, I'd have to drive at least 6 hours to get to one.
Not worth it. I'm worried that it's totally not worth it. There is the smallest film ever made, the subatomic film, A Boy and His Atom. Definitely worth seeing. And what else do we have? We had the PBS, the movie PBS meets the Avengers.
Right.
Amusing. So you should check that out on Facebook. Some good links there.
That's facebook.com/The Next Reel.
The Next Reel, yes. Go there. Okay, so let's talk about this movie.
Yes, let's.
I sure do like it.
Yeah?
Sure do.
So this is what, 5th of our 1976 series, and the 6th 1976 film we've talked about, because we also talked about All the President's Men,
right, which is now in the series.
Yeah. Would this be your favorite of the films of 1976 we've discussed?
Yes, it would. It would be my favorite.
Yeah,
it's tough to beat this.
It's
tough.
really
It's tough to beat. I feel some. There are those films that that you feel sort of personal kind of ownership of. This was my dad and I grew up in the news business. My dad was a newsman all of his life, and I grew up as the boss's son in a newsroom, and this was the first film that I saw that was about the business. And I remember being really moved by it. It was, it's again, that family connection. I think we've talked about that before, that, there's that connection that you feel with when you see the movie for the first time with somebody very important to you. And my dad and I kind of have shared that. Not only that, it has become such gospel, the sort of unspoken gospel to this industry, because everything that Chayefsky was writing at this time has essentially come to pass, right? The blackness of the comedy that he was going for as that movie closes, this network closes, is we haven't quite gotten that far, but it's tough to see, an end to where we have gone, and down that road. So I am just fascinated by his prescience in writing this movie as the industry has continued to evolve in this direction.
Absolutely. And it's funny because Sidney Lumet, who directed it, and Chayefsky always used to say when they were talking about this film that it's not a satire of the TV industry. Right. It's sheer reportage. They would say everything that they're talking about in the movie is going on. It's all already there. It's like, even back then in 1976, this was the direction everything was taking. So but you're right, it really has, the TV industry really has continued transforming to a point where it almost has become a self-satire, and all of the stuff that they were talking about in this film, it's just every day, and we're all so used to it, and it almost doesn't even faze us that this reality TV and this type of news that is really just nothing more than entertainment is just what we fill our brains with every time we're watching TV now.
Right. We've sort of missed the transition in many respects, and I think that's one of the things that network does so exceptionally well is to the break between Act 1 and Act 2, when as we move into the sort of the success era for this network, is such a clear transition between, we used to be a news organization and now we're a crazy organization. And I think it's brilliant, the way they play this. One of the things I think is so interesting about this, we should talk first about Chayefsky, and I wonder if you want to start by reflecting a little bit on some of on that New York Times link that you had forwarded me of Chayefsky's notes. I found that really moving.
Yeah, I mean, this was a guy who, he had been, born and raised in New York. He had served in the military. He had been writing for TV almost from its infancy. He had seen a lot of America. He had seen the changes America had been going through. He was not really happy with the changes of his country, with the changes of TV, the industry he was working in. And he said, that American people, this was a note he wrote to himself, American people don't want jolly, happy family type shows like Eyewitness News. People want angry shows. This is what, America was looking forward to. So they base their programming on anger. At the moment, the successful sitcom shows are those that make political comments, mild, bland, liberal political comments on racism, Watergate, political corruption, reactionary neighbors, etc. this station in his in the movie, in the script network, and in the film, UBC decides to go one step better and make genuinely angry sitcoms. So they become sit tragedies, is what he calls them. He really was, in a way, he was mad as hell,
right.
and he was this character who was just not happy with the way that he was seeing his industry and the country going, and he needed to find a way to voice everything that he felt about it in a very smart piece that spoke to all of these truths.
That's it. The speech, meddling with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking it up because it's that good, and I didn't have it ready.
It's one of the it's a speech that Ned Beatty gives toward the end of the film. Ned Beatty is the head of the corporation that owns the network.
Yes.
This was at a time when corporations were starting to swoop in and buy up networks and essentially everything else that they could.
This passage, the scene is, to me, it's epic in its intimacy, right? It is. He welcomes. This is immediately after Howard Beale urges the world, 60 million viewers who are watching, to get up and send notes to the president to block a merger of these two major media organizations. And the president of this organization doesn't like that. And so this is his response. He welcomes Mr. Beale to his office. He warmly shakes his hand. He puts his other hand around his back. He says, "We're going to go to the conference room. I think it would be a more appropriate setting for the conversation we need to have." And as he closes, he just very gently closes, flips the switch so that the curtains close automatically, and then dims the lights. So all you see is the glowing sort of hanging accountants lights that are over each chair at the desk. And then he begins to roar. "You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it. Is that clear? You think you have merely stopped a business deal? That is not the case. The Arabs have taken billions of dollars out of our country, and now they must put it back. It is ebb and flow, tidal gravity. It is ecological balance. You are an old man who thinks in terms of nations and peoples." He goes on to say, "The world is a business, Mr. Beale. It has been since man crawled out of the slime. Our children will live, Mr. Beale, to see that perfect world in which there is no war or famine, oppression or brutality, one vast and ecumenical holding company for whom all men will work to serve a common profit, in which all men will hold a share of stock, all necessities provided, all anxieties tranquilized, all boredom amused. And I have chosen you, Mr. Beale, to preach this evangel. Why me? Because you're on television, dummy. 60 million people watch you every night of the week, Monday through Friday. I have seen the face of God. You might just be right, Mr. Beale." I find that, to me, that is central to the entire kind of schema of his argument. And in the notes, in Chayefsky's notes that we will post a link to that in the New York Times, we see this hand scribbled note saying, I'm not on the side of anything, right?
Yeah.
I'm not taking sides here. I'm just presenting. As you say, it's reportage. And at the same time, it's hard to read this passage and not feel like Chayefsky, who used a by credit in this film, not just written by or story by or screenplay by. It was the film by Paddy Chayefsky. It's hard to read that and not think this is a guy with a message.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, aside from the fact that he came from theater and really felt, and as did the filmmakers, the Sidney Lumet and the producer Howard Gottlieb. Is it Gottfried? I'm forgetting his name, but they felt, he needs to be credited. It's his script. These are his words. I think they could tell. I think everyone who read this script could tell this was completely honest. This was a script completely from somebody who was saying something. And yes, there's an entertaining story here, but there's so much more going on than just a Hollywood script. This absolutely should have been, and was rightfully so, credited as by Paddy Chayefsky.
And, you think about this passage and you look at where we are today. Now we have these, giant corporations, and you are taken care of, and I say that in, heavily in air quotes, taken care of in benefits. And if you don't say anything or upset a system in any way, shape, or form, you are arguably, this has come to pass, that you're serving the common profit for the giant holding company. In this world of business. And it's, again, that sort of prescience of Chayefsky's reportage here that is just stunning now 40 years later.
Yeah, and he then goes on to, Beale then goes on to go back on TV and talk to his viewers and say, you're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning up here. You're beginning to think the tube is reality. Then your own lives are unreal. And he goes on and talks about that. And then at the end he says, what does he say? In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion. And again, looking at the prescient words that he had put in his characters' mouths then, and looking at where we are now, I can only feel that he was like looking into the future as to how our society so much now views itself through the eyes of all of these shows about celebrities and these websites that are all about, what's the latest, watch the latest, clothing malfunction from this celebrity, and look how this pregnant celebrity is showing too much fat, and just all of this stuff. It's like gone beyond this point where people aren't living their own lives. It's not real when you're just living. You're only really living if you're watching and you're absorbing this stuff that other people are doing.
Yeah, the idea that passive consumption is somehow, has somehow become one of the important things we do every day.
Yeah.
There's a funny connection for me, and this may seem like a complete aside. Do you read TheVerge.com? Are you a Verge reader?
I've read it. I don't regularly read it.
Well, I'm not. I read it because I'm a nerd, and I really like what those guys are doing. I love the Verge properties. I think they're doing some great work over there. And there has been this kind of divergent angle. Paul Miller is one of the writers over there, and he left the internet for a year. And canceled all his accounts, got rid of his smartphone, went back to a dumb feature phone, and just got a PO box for real snail mail, and stopped getting online. He would file these essays once a week, and by putting them on a USB drive and walking them into the office, and this is what they paid him to do, is to make these observations about what happens in life. What is it that this mindless tube has been doing to you?
Right.
And he filed on May 1st, a couple days ago, that he came back online. They did this huge, online video event at midnight, April 30th. They got everybody together and they did a big countdown, like New Year's Eve kind of a thing, when he got back online. And he wrote this fantastic, I don't know how many 1,000-word essay on kind of summarizing his experience. And I think there are some really fundamental parallels, and I don't think he had Network or Chayefsky in mind when he's talking about kind of what the tube does to us. But it's absolutely worth reading in this context that the internet is what Chayefsky was arguing the tube was through Howard Beale, that it has become the mindless consumption, and and that was not the observation that Miller came out with in his essay. We say that it's this mindless, horrible thing, but in fact, the internet serves a much more interesting and deeply personal role. And so it's worth reading. We should post that. I'll post the link to this one too, especially in this conversation about words that drive the sentiment of mindlessness. So the I had a point there. I was coming back to it. No, I lost it. I actually brought up the Verge page and I started reading, and I teared up a little bit. It's really good. The end is really quite good.
Wow.
So anyhow, so the whole can we look at the Howard Beale trajectory?
Yeah.
Over the course of the thing, the film is said to be, and if you found anything different, let me know. It was said to be inspired Chayefsky had heard of or experienced the suicide of Christine Chubbuck in Sarasota, Florida, who was an anchor woman suffering from depression and killed her. She shot herself on camera in 1974. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, which interestingly, Howard does actually mention in the original script. And I think they smartly probably took those words out because it probably was a little too recent, was a little too inappropriate still.
Right. That's a great point. And, I'll tell you what not to do is don't go looking for that video, the Christine Chubbuck thing, because it turns out there are a lot of media personalities who have done or attempted to do this, and you can find those videos very quickly. It is horrifically
it's horrible,
depressing. But this event, the Chubbuck event, apparently inspired Chayefsky to start thinking about this, and that's why we get in the very open of the film, we get Beale, who has come off the rails. We don't actually see him come off the rails. The film opens with him and his buddy getting drunk and talking about the good old days. Beale is let down because the ratings had been falling, and he comes off the rails and says on the air, with only 2 weeks left to work, he says, "I'm going to kill myself in 2 weeks" on the air.
Yeah.
And then where do we go from there?
Well, it's interesting. Initially, I mean, they view him as a lost man who really just has gone off the deep end. He wasn't getting the ratings. His life was in the just not going very well. And really, it's just like they rightfully, at that point, his boss, Max, wonderfully played by William Holden, decides, we got to let you go. We can't keep you on the air. Well, Howard Beale pleads him to come back on just one more time. I'm just going to, have my dignified exit. He goes on, and he again starts talking about how he didn't have any more BS. He couldn't spew anything else out. And Max decides to let him run. If this is how he wants to go out, this is how he's going to go out. Well, the young up-and-comer in the programming department, wonderfully played by Faye Dunaway in this film, Diana, she latches onto that and sees the news stories about how their network that is failing, that this news is actually getting more ratings than they've had in a while. And so she convinces her boss, also wonderfully played by Robert Duvall, that they should get him on the air. Howard Beale, they give him essentially his own show to be this ranting madman, and he becomes this spewer of truth and is having visions of talking to God and all of this sort of stuff, and becomes a messenger that, rightly or wrongly, is the big thing at the station, and changing people's lives because he's as mad as hell and he's not going to take it anymore. And it's really, he became a voice for the people. And I think that's what people really latched onto. The station wrongly, I should say, latched on to him as an opportunity to start making more money and promote, Sybil the Soothsayer and all these other shows that they tied into the Howard Beale show. And he became this voice that then started spewing too much truth against the corporate interests of the company. And that's when your speech that you mentioned earlier, that Ned Beatty so wonderfully gives, he comes in and he kind of straightens him out, Mr. Beale, in an interesting, that scene is, we should talk about how that scene was shot because it's fascinating in its construction. And by the time Ned Beatty finishes his speech, he's right up next to him. He's lit from the back, so he's almost completely silhouetted. And that's when Beale says, "I have seen the face of God," as if he's looking at God right then. And then he starts spewing other truths about the corporate control and how we really don't have anything, and slides down on the other side of what is really true, it's the realities of things, not just people getting angry, but now he's gone across the line to this is the reality, and this is why everything sucks and life is meaningless, and we're all just, stuck in it. We're just cogs in this great big machine, essentially. And
that I think is the most important thing to talk about. Peter Finch's portrayal of Howard Beale, right? That he is completely daffy. That he is what we learn in Act 2. We believe we have learned that he is standing up for the rights of the people, right? That he is the Robin Hood of intelligentsia. And what we learn at that pivot after the "You will atone, Mr. Beale" speech is that he also as you say, he slides down on the other side. He completely lays down on his on everything that he had stood up for, and yet miraculously, he is right in both acts.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's frightening, is he is right on both sides of the line when he's preaching. He's absolutely preaching the truth.
Yes, and that I think is what makes Howard Beale such a legendary character and such a prognosticator.
Yeah.
Go. I interrupted you. Go on.
No. But and then what happens is the corporate interests like the direction that he's going, because he's now preaching the truth about essentially the corporate interests. Well, unfortunately, it's not doing good for the ratings, and so there's this amazingly horrifying meeting with all the network executives who essentially sit around a table and decide, well, the best thing that we can do, since corporate won't let us, fire Beale and cancel the show, best thing we can do is just to kill him. And so they hire these crazy, ecumenical liberation army members that they're doing another show with, to kind of basically sit in the audience and assassinate him, and it's horrifying.
And they do. I mean, it's not a gaffe.
No, they actually do assassinate him. Yeah, it's horrifying.
It is horrifying, and that's where that's where you sort of draw the line. I felt like I was watching it, after reading how Chayefsky really pitched this and Lumet as reportage. I sort of have to hang my hat on. Black comedy, on this one, because it's a little much to believe anything otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely balance that line of the comedy all the way through, with the preaching the truth and opening people's eyes in a way to things that are going on.
This is a movie talking about Howard Beale's trajectory. This is a movie where I like the voiceover.
It's not an overbearing voiceover. It's actually done very simply. It's done as kind of an omniscient voice. It's not a character in the film. Very effective. Very effective.
It's very much a broadcast. That I think the voiceover actually changes the tone of the film. It moves it, as you say, more from from this kind of dramatic fiction to documentarian kind of tone, and it might as well be Cronkite, reading to you, telling you the news of the day.
Yep,
it's done very, very well,
and it's done by Lee Richardson, who was in Prizzi's Honor, something else that we talked about here.
Indeed. Closing the loop. We got to talk about the cast and the cast of immense bench
it's like, where do you start?
Yeah, where do you even start? You know what? This movie is full of fantastic little monologues, right?
And fantastic big monologues.
And fantastic big monologues. This is a monologue-y, it is a rich in monologue script. There are a couple that stand out to me. The William Holden monologue to Faye Dunaway. Peter Finch obviously has a lot of them. But the sequence I think I would like to start with is Louise Schumacher to her husband, Beatrice Straight.
Yeah. The wonderful Beatrice Straight, who unfortunately appears in Endless Love.
Oh, God.
But redeems herself with Poltergeist.
Wow.
Yeah.
You had to do that, right?
I was happy to see her. I thought maybe she'd bring the film up a little bit, but she wasn't in it enough. Beatrice Straight is amazing in all 10 minutes of screen time that she has in this film. so amazing that she actually won a Best Supporting Actress for her role. She just is. She's wonderful.
She's wonderful, right?
It's one of the most heartbreaking scenes I have ever seen, and this is a 35-year-old film now, 37-year-old film. I mean, it's old, but she's just so good, and it's just amazing to watch her.
One of the things that I think is the gift that she gives this film, right? That you see her a few times, right, throughout the film, leading up to the sequence where Max comes clean on his affair. And the fact that she's an ancillary character leading up to that scene, and yet we still really fall in love with her in that sequence as she is, coming to terms with the fact that her husband is being unbelievably forthright in his feelings about this other woman and about his wife at the same time, and having to hold these things in his head at the same time. I mean, it is a brilliantly written sequence, but the fact is we fall in love with this character that we only see, as you say, for a couple of minutes in this film, and yet we obviously we fall in love with her. She wins the Academy Award. She's fantastic.
And and a lot of that, the strength of her performance goes to the honesty that is also, she's exuding honesty in it, but also the honesty coming from William Holden, who she's playing opposite in that scene. And his portrayal is equally brilliant. It's,
True.
In that particular scene, it's a much, he's kind of reacting to her more so, but, he equally gives as honest a performance in this film. And the moment you mentioned when he's talking to Diana, I'm assuming you mean the one toward the end of the film.
Exactly, when they're about to part ways.
Yep. Before, the one right before they part ways.
Right.
One of the most heartbreaking scenes, and it's so powerful watching him have all these realizations as he's talking to her, and just watching his face and the emotions flooding through him as he talks to her. And then it keeps cutting to her, and you just see that this is a vacant person who is trying to find those sense of emotions that he's expressing. And you can see that she truly is this TV generation raised on Bugs Bunny who just can't tap into what those emotions actually are. Genius scene.
When he looks back at her and says, I'm riddled with guilt, and I'm riddled with these feelings that you don't understand, but that my generation sees as just good old common decency.
Yeah.
He is, I mean, it's not too trite to say you just don't see performances like this as often as I want to. It's just fantastic.
No, and I mean, and it's funny because Aaron Sorkin, when he won the Oscar for The Social Network, he brought up Paddy Chayefsky and Network, and I can't remember what specifically he said, but I think it was interesting as somebody who also I think writes very sharply and great characters, and is close to writing like this. It's nice to see him recognizing that in his speech, even.
I wanted to talk a little bit about that. You told me, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I brought up the Newsroom.
Yeah.
Have you haven't watched any in Newsroom, right?
I still haven't. Yeah.
It's fascinating, and I think there are people who are really divided on Sorkin and his writing, and see him as he writes great tight dialogue, but boy, when he wants to get his point across, he can be pretty overwrought.
Yeah.
I think there's probably some truth to that. I think he knows he's one of those writers that has the sort of constitutional gift of knowing where our buttons are, and so we may feel it's overwrought, and I certainly feel this way in Newsroom, that some of the writing is overwrought and heavy-handed, and yet I say that at the same time I'm like wiping tears from my face, right? So how bad can it be? But when you compare Sorkin and Chayefsky, I see them filling the same role.
Yeah.
Generationally, and I just see Chayefsky doing it with a scalpel and not so much a mallet.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I think. That's what we demonstrate with, and the properties are so similar. I mean, so radically similar, right? We have a network news anchor comes off the rails, a cable news anchor comes off the rails, and then we have it's the same story, and yet what we're seeing in this is a just scalpel precision. In Chayefsky's work.
Yeah.
All right, who's next?
Peter Finch. I think is fantastic as the prophet. And the tragedy of it is that while they were doing the awards publicity after the film had come out, kind of prepping for the Oscars, Peter Finch was traveling with Sidney Lumet, and Sidney Lumet came to greet him in the hotel lobby, and he saw Peter, and Peter just kind of fell over and he died. Right there in the hotel room lobby, he had a heart attack and passed away. And just a tragedy, like right before the Oscars, and he didn't make it, and he was the first person to win an Academy Award posthumously for a performance that I think is indelible and one that rightfully is remembered as just one of the all-time great performances.
Truly, and held the record until 2009. Heath Ledger.
Yep.
Absolutely fantastic performance from Peter Finch, and remarkably memorable. You're absolutely right.
Who almost didn't get the role because he's Australian, and he had been performing in England in British films and I think theater for years, and Lumet was afraid that he felt he had to absolutely cast someone who was an American. And Finch had to really win him over to prove that he could do an American accent. So he did, and luckily for us, he got it.
Peter Finch wins Best Actor. Beatrice Straight, Best Supporting Actress. Best Actress also crushing it in this film, Faye Dunaway.
Yeah. And William Holden, of course, lost to Peter Finch. And Ned Beatty was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for his another very brief role and a very last-minute role. He came in at the last minute, like literally. He got the script, was memorizing lines on the plane flight over, and had to do it the next day. He was filling in for somebody who wasn't getting the role right. But he lost to, I believe, it was Jason Robards in All the President's Men.
Which is okay.
It is okay. Yeah, it
if
is
you're
okay.
Gonna lose to Jason Robards.
We're okay with that. But this film won 3 of the 4 acting awards, and I believe it was it hadn't happened since. Gosh, what was the film right before that had done that? I want to say it was. It's gonna come to me. I can't remember right now.
What was the first movie you ever remember seeing Ned Beatty in?
Streetcar Named Desire. That's what it was. Superman.
That's my problem. That's my challenge with Ned. I love Ned Beatty, and I learned to love him, but I couldn't. Mr. Luthor.
That's exactly.
You totally can't shake it.
I think of, and then of course, as I get older and I'm trying to, get out of that Mr. Luthor thing.
Yeah.
Then I go and watch. What is it? Deliverance.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I have a whole different picture of Ned Beatty in my head. Oh my!
Totally. Oh, poor Ned Beatty.
Yes.
Good choices.
Memorable choices. Okay.
All right. So who's next?
Just a few that are worth mentioning. I think I kept recognizing her every time I've seen this film, but I could never place her. Conchata Ferrell is in this film briefly as one of the women who works with Diana, Faye Dunaway's character. And I always guess, I know her from something. And sure enough, she's one of those, I know who that person is sorts of faces. And she's in everything if you look her up. And she's actually, I think, won or has been nominated for some Emmys for her work in 2.5 Men. She was in Edward Scissorhands, Erin Brockovich, True Romance. She's just one of those faces that's in everything.
She is, and wasn't she on TV for a long time?
Yes, lots of TV.
Yeah, she's been on TV. She was, she is one of those faces.
Yeah, she truly is.
Now I'm gonna be really stressing over this. What was she in? L.A. Law.
Yep.
L.A. Law. That's the one. Okay. Let's see. Who else do we have to talk about? We've got.
Well,
I think we talked about the big award-winning performances here.
Yeah, and then the only last one that I wanted to mention, just for trivia purposes, is Kathy Cronkite. Walter Cronkite's daughter is in this film, playing Marianne Gifford, the girl who has kind of been kidnapped by the ecumenical liberation army and has kind of been swayed to them, much like the true story.
We haven't talked about Robert Duvall as Frank
and
Hackett.
Robert Duvall. Yeah.
What do you say about Robert Duvall? He's young but still bald.
Yeah, I know. I don't think he ever had hair.
Yeah,
because even when he was playing Boo Radley, I think he was still bald.
Yeah,
really, you just can't go wrong ever.
No.
With Robert Duvall.
No. He is a fantastic. What is his actual role as a studio president?
He is the president of programming
for the role.
And then once the head of the network dies, he takes over and is running the network.
Right. Yeah. And he is he is the sort of a vessel of evil for broadcasting. They have this great sequences. This violates every canon of respectable broadcasting. We're not a respectable network, he says. We're a whorehouse network, and we have to take whatever we can get.
Yeah.
And that is that's the nature of the good and evil of this film.
And he just is.
They all have. They're full of this. Is such.
Yeah,
brilliant dialogue.
It's ripe with brilliant lines. It really is.
And I'm posting a link to the script. It is one of those scripts that is absolutely worth reading. There's just as much joy in reading this script as there is watching the film.
Absolutely.
Okay, you want to talk about Sidney Lumet?
Yes, we should talk Lumet. Here's a guy who really has done nothing but make great films. I mean, honestly, you look at his body of work from, he started it in TV actually with Chayefsky. That's where they met, I think, working on one of those live shows that they were doing back in the 50s and 60s. And then he started making his feature films. I think what was his first film? Was it 12 Angry Men? Yeah.
12 Angry Men.
I mean, right out of the box, he makes 12 Angry Men, just an absolutely genius film, and goes on to make a slew of other great films. And the 70s was ripe with wonderful films out of him. Dog Day Afternoon, Murder on the Orient Express, Serpico. He really just did a lot of great stuff. The Verdict he did in the 80s, Prince of the City.
The great thing about Lumet is that I love his films so much, and I don't feel he's one of those directors that you love and feel justified in loving, not that you have to love him because you're a film snob. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he makes great films, and he's also not a filmmaker who feels he has to say, oh, this is a Sidney Lumet film. Can't you tell? Like, he doesn't feel like he has to put a stamp on it that says this is Lumet. He just makes a great film. He has no problem saying this is a Paddy Chayefsky story. It needs to reflect that. It doesn't need to showcase the magic of what Sidney Lumet can do with making a film. Sidney is there to direct it and to make a great film out of the words that Paddy put out there.
What a great relationship that is. What an honest kind of relationship.
Yeah, I think he felt that way probably with most of the scripts that came through for him. And he cranked out great film after great film. He's somebody we should talk about more one day.
We should do all of them.
One of his 72 films.
Did you see Before the Devil Knows You're Dead? I think that was his last one.
I did.
I quite liked that one.
I did too. It is a really hard film to like because it's so hard to like those characters because of everything they do.
Yeah, there's nothing really good about it. But it's one of those that I only bring that up because you look at 1957, 12 Angry Men, right? And then 72 films later, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, and every single it's hard to look at that list and think of a movie that you really wouldn't want to watch again.
Yeah. Except maybe Gloria.
And The Wiz. I'm sort of done with The Wiz.
Okay,
maybe
so
Equus.
Maybe
Equus. There are a couple. Yeah. Right.
I've never seen Equus. I'll have to see that one at least once before I can rip it apart.
It's not because of his. I actually have not seen his film, but I saw it on stage. What are you going to do?
No. I'll have to see it one of these days.
Ooh, naked. Okay. So who's next?
So
you wanted to talk about some of the production of this, right? Before we
let's get into that right now. I want to talk about the cinematography.
Yeah.
Owen Roizman was the director of photography on this film. A cinematography we've talked about before. He did The French Connection. He did The Exorcist. He did just lots of great films. And he was nominated for an Oscar for this film. And he's nominated for 5 Oscars. Let's see. The French Connection, The Exorcist, Network, Tootsie, and Wyatt Earp in 94. So he's, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. A lot of nominations. He's a cinematographer, I think, who really just knows how to make a film look great. Now, this is an interesting film where he and Lumet talked about quite a bit as to how they wanted the look of it. They wanted, right at the beginning of the film, everything to look normal, nothing to look really kind of out of line. It all looks good. As the film progresses, as characters get corrupted, they wanted the camera to get corrupted. They wanted the look of the film to get corrupted. So as the film goes along, the lighting becomes more extreme. And it really starts when, I believe it's at nighttime, when Howard Beale has started his kind of crazy ranting show. Max is sitting in his office, just kind of listening, and he sees that Diana has walked in. From that scene forward, it really starts slowly changing. You don't really notice it, but by the time we're at the end of the film, you've got some pretty intense and dramatic scenes. And the way they're lit, it's very specific lighting. And the scene with Ned Beatty, when he comes in, the way he dims the lights, closes the curtain, all you have are this row of this massively long table of those little green desk lights running down the whole length, lighting it up. And the way they start that shot from the far end of the table in this wide shot, and you have Ned Beatty as this little man in a spotlight standing up preaching from the end there. And in this darkness with just these table lights lighting him. And then the camera, every time we cut back, the camera starts pushing and compressing we change lenses and we're compressing it. So he's getting more compressed closer to us. The lights are getting bigger and they're filling the space more. And the way they do that scene is just so fascinating, because then Ned Beatty walks around through the darkness, ending up basically backlit by all of these lights. And like I was talking about earlier, it's like he's now God. And I think that scene really exemplifies what Lumet and Roizman were trying to do with this corruption of the image and making it go from normal to introducing us and embracing us in this corrupt, frightening world and crazy world that the film it really takes us into.
I'm glad you brought that up about the compression, because I think that scene does something really spectacular. That table is immense, and through the course of this operatic speech, we get. By virtue of changing lenses and moving the camera, we get this feeling that the characters are coming closer together, even though they are not, until the very end when they are suddenly nose to nose. Right. And that's an interesting trick, this idea of compressing this massive space between them using the lens. Almost makes that transition to having them so intimately close at the end even more powerful.
Truly.
It just leads us in a really interesting way.
And then we go from that to the final scene, the final show,
right,
where he gets assassinated, and just the pools of light that are on the stage and everything. It's just so dramatic. It's really dramatic, and the way the world has changed, it's taken us into a very dark place. So fascinating work by Roizman.
And the end, the last scene, and I don't know, are there other sequences you want to pull apart?
No, that was really the specific one. Yeah,
it's very powerful, and I think we go back to this narrator voice, right? It's this the film opens with the narrator. They're showing kind of a montage of newsmen, and the narrator says,
"It's like that 4-screen monitor wall in a newsroom, right?
In a newsroom." And the narrator says, "This story is about Howard Beale, who was the network news anchorman on UBS TV." And then we hear a little bit more about Howard Beale, and then it closes, and we have this overhead shot of Beale, who has been shot 3 times from 3 different angles, 3 different assailants in the audience. and he is laying back, sort of prone on stage, and the camera, as you know, I should say as if, but on cue, moves in to Howard and tilts down. So but we're above the camera as it moves in and tilts down. And we see the studio camera tilts down, and the narrator says, "This was the story of Howard Beale, who was on the network, who was the network news anchorman on UBS TV, the first known instance of a man being killed because he had lousy ratings." And then he fades out, and that's the end of the film. And I think I mean, if that doesn't ring like a punchline, I don't know what does.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, and speaking to that, it's also interesting that just the play on words of, you know, he gets shot by these guns, the camera pushes in, and the camera is also shooting him.
Exactly.
In a way, it's turning us into just as much of an accomplice in this murder by giving him lousy ratings, and we're responsible for his death.
Right.
It's a fascinating indictment on the viewers and what responsibility we have, in a way, by the decisions we make based on what we want.
Well, that's right. You know, this is the idea of eyeballs as currency. You know, if we just because we or you could make the pitch that what Chayefsky is and Lumet are saying here is that you're not actually really being passive when you're dealing with this box. You are taking an active role in what happens on the air by the choices you make.
Yeah.
I think about this as I turn on Hulu and find myself absentmindedly sucked into season 47 of The Real World. Still on the air, The Real World.
My goodness.
They're in Portland this season. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's the only reason I'm excited.
I don't watch it. So yeah.
No, I didn't either. I haven't watched it since I was in college, and now here we are, 87 years later. Still
oh my goodness.
Same thing. Anyway, fantastic film. What do you?
It really, it's one of my all-time favorites. I mean, it's in my top 20.
Easily.
I love this film, and I think it's a stellar piece of work. It was nominated for 10 Oscars. It won 4. Paddy Chayefsky for writing it, and then the 3 actors we've talked about. The other nominations that it was nominated for, gosh, you know, I think of all of them, I think I would have been happy to see it win all of them. The biggest one for me, and you know, I'm still, it's hard for me to pick in the best picture category, but I think between this and All the President's Men, I would go with Network. I think Network, for me, and maybe it's because I'm in the industry, you're in the industry, you know, for me, I just feel so much more attached to this film than any of the others that were nominated that year. And what was the list of nominations? Gosh, let me find it here. The best picture was All the President's Men, Bound for Glory, Network, Rocky, which won, and Taxi Driver.
Rocky.
And Rocky is the one that won.
Wow.
The most, I think it made more money that year than anything else. It was the #1 film of '76. It really kind of came out of nowhere and surprised everybody. And, you know, there you go. It won Best Picture as well.
Oh, dear.
It would be the bottom of my list of those 5.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I like Rocky, but for me, it's not Best Picture.
You know, one of the things we haven't really talked about, and I don't believe I'm really equipped to talk about it, is the role of that other plot line, right? Of Diana's, ecumenical liberation organization, and what is going on with the shows that she is looking to pitch, the anger shows, and the role of the people involved in that particular show.
Yeah,
because it's interesting, and the play that you get between these two plot lines, that what she's trying to develop as these new, sit tragedies, and what Beale is both railing against and at us and around us. It plays very well, but we tend to be so focused on the Beale angle that it's that sometimes that other powerful story actually gets a little bit lost.
Yeah, you're right. It does, but it equally plays into this whole psychology that's going into the choices they're making in the programming that they're developing.
Right.
I think one of the most frightening scenes for me, because I think it's so true, is, we see her meet the
You're going to talk
representative.
about the basement negotiation.
Yeah, the basement negotiations. But we see her meet the radical leader. I can't remember her name, Laureen.
Yeah.
Early on, and then we see the initial meeting of the great Ahmed Khan, and we see talking about this thing. But then later in the film, they're having the negotiations about their shows, and you see them. These are these terrorists, and they're all arguing about the contract points. And it sounds exactly like what you would hear in actors or anyone else arguing about their, just all the different elements within the contract. And it's so funny coming out of their mouths, because this is what happens. Once you introduce that celebrity status to these people or to anyone, all of a sudden their point of view changes, and they start looking at all these little things as to what can I do to keep that status up where it needs to be.
Absolutely. And the fact that Ahmed Khan has to actually fire his weapon in order to stop these executives and lawyers from their argument, and just say, give her the points and let's move on. As they continue reading this contract in perfect legalese. It's great.
It is really. It's just that's one of my favorite scenes in the film. It is
really funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm good. You have other stuff?
Well, I don't have anything else about this film in particular, but I want to go through. I want to do our own little. Since we've been talking about 1976 so much,
sure.
I want to do our own little Oscar poll.
Oh. Well, aren't you fancy?
That's right. So we already picked Best Picture, I think, right? Of the ones that were nominated, you and I would vote Network.
Yes. Yeah.
Even over All the President's Men, I would still vote Network.
No, I would also vote Network as well. Yeah.
Now, some of these, as I read them, we're not going to have seen all of the films or have talked about them on the show, but it's still I'll rattle them all off. For Best Actor, we've got Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver, Peter Finch in Network, Giancarlo Giannini in Seven Beauties, William Holden in Network, and Sylvester Stallone in Rocky. Peter Finch won for Network.
Yeah.
I think Peter Finch is brilliant. There's a place in my heart for William Holden, though. I'm really torn between those two.
It's hard to separate the sentiment for me. The fact that he won this award posthumously, he won it for such a, just a fantastically, off the rails performance. I felt genuinely moved by the journey that he took us on, and so that sort of level of complexity of climbing up the mountain and then coming back down the mountain and completely changing his tune and still being right.
Yeah, right.
I find that was pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah,
I'm with you on William Holden. I mean, he was the most human sort of character in terms of just human presentable honesty in this film.
And we needed that. We needed that. Absolutely. To make this film work, we needed that character.
Sure, we did.
Best Actress: Christine Baralt in Cousin, Faye Dunaway in Network, Talia Shire in Rocky, Sissy Spacek in Carrie, and Liv Ullmann in Face to Face. We've talked about two of those here. I would totally go with Faye Dunaway. I think she's one of my favorite actresses from the period. Absolutely, hands down, I would give it to her.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think about I haven't seen, what was the last one?
Liv Ullmann in Face to Face.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that. Yeah. So I can't really comment, but I certainly think she's Faye Dunaway outdoes Sissy Spacek
and definitely Talia Shire.
Definitely Talia Shire.
And gosh, it's been a while since I've seen Rocky, but to me it seems like Talia Shire's role was more of a supporting actress performance.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. All right, supporting actor, we've got Ned Beatty in Network, Burgess Meredith in Rocky, Laurence Olivier in Marathon Man, Jason Robards in All the President's Men, and Burt Young in Rocky.
I after seeing this movie again, I come back to Ned Beatty's performance. I just, as long as we're talking about Beatrice and her role as Mrs. Shoemaker, that is of all those performances, that's the the monologue I come back to most often in just life.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yep.
His performance really stuck with me, and apart from making fun of Burgess Meredith and his performance in Rocky, I don't think about that all that much.
Right. I love Olivier in Marathon Man. I absolutely do. I would totally pick Ned Beatty as well, though. I think his performance, and it's funny, speaking of the films that we mentioned, Deliverance, Network, and Superman, look at what this man could do and how varied his performances are.
Absolutely.
Ned Beatty, hands down. All right, supporting actress, we've got Jane Alexander in All the President's Men, another very brief part, as I recall. Jodie Foster in Taxi Driver, Lee Grant in Voyage of the Damned, Piper Laurie in Carrie, and Beatrice Straight in Network. So we've talked about 4 of those films.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. On reflection of our series here this week or this month, I'm very deeply moved by Beatrice Straight here, but there is this thing about Piper Laurie that I find I keep coming back to, just in terms of strength of character.
And here's what I would say about that. Piper Laurie's character is what makes that film. It is the most terrifying performance, and she is the reason that film holds up, I think.
Because, that we're even talking about it.
Because it's such a terrifyingly psychological performance that puts this young high school girl in the place that she's at. I think I would agree with you. I may pick Piper Laurie over Beatrice Straight. As heartbreaking, as much as I want to go give Beatrice Straight a hug as soon as I watch the film.
Yes, I think I'm there.
I mean, Jane Alexander in All the President's Men, her performance is fine, but honestly, I can't remember it that well. I don't know if I would call it Oscar winning.
But you said it. I mean, Piper Laurie is a tentpole for Carrie, and none of those other performances are tentpole performances for those films.
And Jodie Foster's great in Taxi Driver, but Piper Laurie's it.
Yeah.
All right. Best Direction, John G. Avildsen for Rocky, Ingmar Bergman for Face to Face, Sidney Lumet for Network, Alan J. Pakula for All the President's Men, and Lena Wertmüller for Seven Beauties.
I think I'm going to go with Network.
I am too. Man, we should have been voting. Network would have swept based on your and my opinion.
And think of the power we have if we could actually go back in time. Then we'd be the future people.
That's right. We could be the future folk.
We could be the future folk. Should we flick chart it and just see what happens?
Let's flick chart it.
Just roll the dice.
All righty, you ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, I gotta actually get us into it.
You're not. So you're not ready, is what
I'm
you're
not
saying.
ready.
Yeah,
I thought I was ready, but
great.
I know.
Flickchart, our account over there is flickchart.com/thenextreel, and we Flickchart, as you know, every week at the end of every show, we Flickchart our picks, so you can see our top, now, what is it, 80 some odd list? Top 80?
It's getting up there.
89,
85. We have 85 movies on the list, yeah.
What are we going to do when we hit 100? I'm going to make balloons fall from my ceiling.
Really? I'm just going to have a one-man dance party in my office here. It's going to be magical. All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Network or The Sandlot?
Network. Yay!
Marathon Man.
Network. Yay!
The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Are you gonna have a hard time with this one?
Nope.
Network.
Absolutely. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
This one's gonna give you trouble, right?
Nope.
Network?
Yep.
Oh man!
I told you it's in my top, and we have talked about very few of my top.
I'm excited about this. This is like building pressure or tension.
I tell you, Network or Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Ha ha! This one is going to give you trouble. Please tell me it's going to give you trouble.
Yes, because these are both in my top.
So where are you going to land?
I still have to go with Network. I love Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's I've said on the show, it's the film I've seen more than any other film, I think. And I have such a great time watching it anytime I watch it. But there's something about Network that I don't know. Gosh, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, gosh, maybe it is Raiders. This is why it torments me. Oh, I don't know. It's like, gosh, I can't pick Network over Raiders.
Well, for me, it's a matter of, Raiders is a fantastic adventure. And at the end of Raiders, I don't feel like there is a conversation to be had about the challenges set forth by the character Indiana Jones. Absolutely
true.
And Network, 40 years later, I am still having those conversations when I see this film.
It truly is a film about you can have conversations about over and over again.
Yeah. And so that's why for me it would be Network over Raiders.
Right.
And
I agree.
And it's not the hard. I mean, it's not like, gosh,
No, I know.
It's not like art film conversations. It's like real pop culture, relevant conversations, still relevant today. That's how, this movie is cement.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Network or Jaws?
Network. I like how you set it up, though. Your delivery was great.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
All right, you want to know where it is on our chart?
Yes, I do.
It's number 1. Just
brilliant.
Zip right up to the top there. I really have no problem with that.
I don't either. That feels really good. Yeah.
One of the all-time great films ever made.
I'm glad. It's been a long time since we've done a film that just crushes the list.
It really, really did.
It crushed the list. People, please go to your friendly Netflix and find this film. If you haven't seen it and you've managed to listen to this whole thing, you owe yourself a trip to 1976 to watch Network. It is absolutely worth every penny of your $2.
Truly is.
Yeah. What are we doing next week? We're going to continue. So we finished 1976 now. Bon Voyage 1976. We're actually going back in time.
Yes, we
for
are.
Our next Chayefsky film.
Yes, we're going to jump back to, I believe, 1971, and we're going to watch his film, The Hospital.
Excellent. It's been a long time since I've seen this film.
I have never actually seen this film, so I'm quite excited to watch it.
Oh, this is another buy credit.
This is. And this, I should say, he won his Oscar for Network. He also won for The Hospital. He won 3 Oscars, right. And we're actually going to talk about those 3 films.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I'm very excited about talking about this film. And so it'll be a brief, I think we're doing one more, if you want to do, can we say what we're doing?
Well, I just said it's the 3 that he won Oscars for.
Oh, yeah, so you already gave it away.
Sure,
so
it's Marty. Yeah.
Marty, so we're doing Marty. That'll be our 3rd, so it's a brief Chayefsky stint before we get into our summer series. But we're very, very excited to be talking about more Chayefsky.
Absolutely. Just love his stuff.
Yeah. Hey, good talk.
Yes, indeed. Great talking about a great film.
I'm out of here.
Asta. Da, 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 da. What song? How did we just warp into West Side Story?
Come on, Tony.
Da, da.
Let me be your Maria.
Da, 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 da. That's enough of that.
We wanted to take a moment to thank you for your continued support over the years. It's hard to believe that we have been having weekly, in-depth discussions about movies since 2011.
That's right, 12 years and counting. Producing this show is a labor of love for us, but it does require a lot of time and effort each week.
If you enjoy our podcast and would love to help keep it going, there are some easy ways you can show your support. One is by using our Originals page to shop for the original source material that movies we've discussed were based on.
That's right. In Season 1 alone, we covered 13 films adapted from books or plays, from Charlie Kaufman's adaptation to David Fincher adaptations like Fight Club.
In Season 2, we covered even more, like Powell and Pressburger's The Red Shoes and The African Queen from our series about legendary cinematographer Jack Cardiff.
We can't forget about the 4 Jason Bourne movies we talked about. Love those movies. Well, The original trilogy, at least.
For our Richard D. Zanuck series, we did Jaws, Rush, Big Fish, and more. And for our horror series, we talked about John Carpenter's The Thing, which was adapted from Who Goes There?
We did our first great car chase series with movies like Bullet, The French Connection, and Drive. And for the holidays, we did Preston Sturgis's Christmas in July.
We had a great John Huston series with adaptations like The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
And for our baseball series, Moneyball with Brad Pitt. Have I told you lately how much I love that movie?
Yeah, I think you have. Plus, our Magician series and Heist film series had adaptations as well.
Tons of page-to-screen gems. Listeners can find the details and links to the original material at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play, or movie you buy through our links helps support the show, and it's no extra cost to you.
So dive in and get your next read today. thenextreel.com/originals has all the films adapted from other sources that not only we have covered, but all of the shows on the Next Reel family of podcasts. Check it out and get reading.
Support the show and build your reading list. It's a win-win. Head to thenextreel.com/originals.